Ladies and gentlemen, seekers of truth, listeners of the inner call. Today, I bring you a message that shakes the soul and demands the heart's attention. Awaken the shadow self. For too long humanity has run from its shadows. Fears buried, doubts suppressed, and memories hidden away in the caverns of the unconscious. Yet, what we resist does not vanish. It grows stronger. The shadow, when denied, becomes the silent master of our destiny. But when we dare to face it, embrace it, and awaken it, that same shadow becomes our greatest ally, transforming our chains into keys and our darkness into light. The shadow self is not your enemy. It is your unclaimed power, your unpolished diamond, your untamed force. Within it lies the suppressed creativity, the forgotten courage, and the silenced intuition that life demands you awaken. Success, wealth, peace, and spiritual mastery come not by pretending to be whole, but by reconciling with every hidden part of yourself. When you awaken the shadow self, you begin to see that failure was never your downfall, but your teacher. Rejection was never punishment, but redirection. Fear was never your destroyer, but your compass pointing to the exact place where your strength was waiting to be born. So, I call upon you today. Do not curse your shadow. Do not bury it under false smiles or hollow affirmations. Instead, awaken it. Call it forth. Speak to it as you would a long-forgotten friend. For in awakening the shadow self, you awaken the full measure of who you were destined to become. Your shadow is your completion, not your curse. Awaken it, and the world will tremble at the brilliance of your light. The shadow self is not the enemy, but the hidden reservoir of untapped power. It is the forgotten part of us that we have been taught to fear, to deny, or to push aside in the name of good, acceptable, or strong. Yet what most people never realize is that the very qualities we bury in darkness are often the very forces we need to rise, to create, and to manifest the life we desire. Every fear that clings to you, every anger you suppress, every doubt you silence, carries within it the seed of its opposite: courage, passion, and faith. The shadow is not darkness for the sake of destruction. It is darkness in which light has not yet been claimed. When you run from your shadow, it chases you. It shows up as failure, repeating patterns, broken relationships, or financial struggle. Life is a mirror, and the shadow appears in that mirror until you learn to face it. But when you finally turn toward it and dare to look it in the eyes, you will see that it was never a demon. It was a teacher. It was waiting for you to embrace it so it could hand over the gifts hidden inside. The anger you deny can become the fire of determination that breaks your chains. The fear you resist can transform into the sharp awareness that keeps you safe and focused. The doubt you despise can evolve into discernment, giving you clarity in times of confusion. The shadow is the storage house of your neglected strengths. In every wound, there is wisdom. In every pain, there is hidden potential. In every fear, there is an opportunity to awaken deeper power. Think of the seed buried in soil. It is in the dark, unseen, and forgotten. But without the darkness, it would never sprout. Your shadow self works the same way. It is the soil in which your greatest victories are planted. By embracing it, you awaken forces that have been silently waiting to bloom. The moment you stop fighting your shadow and begin listening to it, you unlock a dimension of yourself that you never imagined existed. Suddenly, the things that once held you back become the very tools that move you forward. Where others see weakness, you find strength. Where others see flaws, you discover hidden perfection. And in this realization, you begin to understand that your shadow self is not your downfall, but your secret reservoir of power. The raw, unfiltered energy of your soul, waiting to be claimed. Suppressed fears and doubts become destructive when ignored, but transformative when embraced. Within every human heart there lies a collection of unspoken worries, quiet insecurities, and silent doubts that we push aside in the hope that they will disappear. But the truth is, whatever we bury does not vanish. It waits. It gathers strength in the hidden chambers of the mind and begins to influence our choices in ways we cannot see. What we suppress begins to rule us from the shadows. Fears ignored manifest as hesitation in moments when courage is demanded. Doubts left unspoken whisper in our decisions, creating sabotage at the very threshold of opportunity. They grow into invisible walls that stop us from stepping into abundance, love, and fulfillment. Yet when we turn toward those fears instead of running from them, a shift occurs. Fear, when acknowledged, is not a prison but a guide. Doubt, when faced directly, is not a weakness but a compass pointing to where faith must grow. Every time you name the fear you carry, you take away a portion of its power. Every time you acknowledge a doubt, instead of pretending it does not exist, you loosen the grip it has on your destiny. The simple act of embracing what you fear transforms the energy it carries. The darkness you once avoided becomes fuel for growth. Fear is only destructive when it is locked away in silence. Doubt is only poisonous when it is allowed to fester in denial. But when you bring them into the light of awareness, they are stripped of their illusion of control. Fear begins to reveal its wisdom. It tells you where your greatest growth awaits. Doubt begins to sharpen your vision. It asks you to seek truth more deeply, to build foundations that cannot be shaken. In this way, the very forces that once broke you become the forces that shape you. Transformation always begins with confrontation. The moment you stop denying what lives within you, you reclaim authority over your inner world. Fear becomes courage in disguise. Doubt becomes clarity waiting to be born. Together, they become stepping stones rather than stumbling blocks. They show you where you have been hiding your own strength, where you have been refusing to believe in your own power. And when you embrace them, they surrender their destructive form and rise as allies on your journey to wholeness. Awakening the shadow leads to creativity, courage, and spiritual wholeness. Inside the human spirit, there are hidden rooms where forgotten dreams and silenced truths lie dormant, waiting to be claimed. The shadow is not just a container of fears, it is also the guardian of gifts we have not yet dared to use. Many of the greatest works of art, the boldest breakthroughs, and the deepest spiritual awakenings come from those who face the places inside themselves that others refuse to explore. Creativity often hides in the corners of our darkness, for in those silent places live the emotions too raw to express in daily life. When you awaken the shadow, you release the fire that turns silence into song, pain into painting, fear into words of power. The shadow also carries the courage you have been seeking. What appears as weakness in the dark becomes strength when brought into the light. Every fear you face within the shadow becomes a doorway to bravery. The very moments you once avoided become the training grounds for unshakable strength. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the alchemy of fear transformed. By awakening the shadow, you begin to see that the fears you thought would break you were actually the exact places where your spirit had stored your deepest strength. You were never weak. You simply had not yet unlocked the treasure hidden behind the mask of fear. On the path of awakening, spiritual wholeness arises as you stop dividing yourself into acceptable and unacceptable parts. Many suffer because they try to live only in the light, pretending the shadow does not exist. But the soul longs for unity, not separation. When you awaken the shadow, you no longer live a fragmented life. You gather every piece of yourself and stand complete. Wholeness comes when you can look at yourself with no disguise, no denial, no shame, and say, "This is all me and it is good." In that moment, you step into freedom. The awakened shadow no longer works against you, it works with you. It becomes the silent partner of your creativity, the hidden source of your courage, and the missing key to your spiritual union. To deny the shadow is to live half a life, but to awaken it is to live in fullness, where nothing is wasted and every part of your being is redeemed. Failure, rejection, and fear are guides that point toward unclaimed strengths. Each of these experiences, though often dreaded, carries within it the seeds of transformation. Failure is not the opposite of success, but its companion, the force that refines vision and chisels away at pride until the core of resilience is revealed. Every failed attempt whispers the truth that another path must be found, that a hidden gift has not yet been used, that a deeper strength waits to be awakened. When embraced, failure becomes instruction. It sharpens determination, strengthens endurance, and opens the mind to possibilities that comfort would have concealed. Rejection, too, holds a hidden blessing. Though it stings the heart and wounds the ego, it is rarely a closed door without reason. Rejection redirects. It tells you that the place you sought was too small for the magnitude of who you are becoming. Every no is a clearing of space for a greater highs. When people walk away, when opportunities collapse, when the world denies you, it is often because life is steering you toward a stage, a purpose, or a connection that truly aligns with your destiny. Rejection tests your faith in yourself, forcing you to see that your worth is not determined by the acceptance of others, but by the power you hold within. Fear, though feared itself, is one of the greatest teachers. It reveals the exact place where courage must be born. Fear points directly at the locked doors of potential, showing you what matters most and where growth is required. When you lean into fear instead of running from it, it transforms into energy that fuels your actions. What once paralyzed you becomes the fire that moves you forward. Fear was never meant to destroy you. It was meant to awaken you to the vastness of your inner strength. Together, failure, rejection, and fear create a holy trinity of guidance. They strip away illusions, test the soul, and force hidden strengths to rise. They show you that success is not merely about achievement, but about the forging of character. Every failure sharpens wisdom. Every rejection deepens self-worth. Every fear overcome expands courage. The very moments that appear as setbacks are in fact milestones of transformation, each pointing to the greatness waiting within. Facing the shadow self unlocks success, wealth, and inner peace. The shadow carries not only our fears and wounds, but also the very qualities we need to rise into the life we desire. Many chase success with restless energy, working harder, striving further, but never stopping to ask what inner blocks keep their efforts from bearing fruit. The truth is, outward success cannot be built on an inner foundation of denial. If your shadow remains unacknowledged, it quietly sabotages progress with doubt, fear, and cycles of self-sabotage. But when you turn and face the shadow, you reclaim the hidden energies that can be directed toward building true success. The obstacles you once thought were enemies transform into resources. The patterns that kept repeating dissolve, leaving space for clarity and opportunity. Success becomes a natural extension of inner wholeness, not something endlessly chased. Wealth, too, begins in the unseen. Many imagine wealth as something earned only through external effort, but the deeper law reveals that wealth is the reflection of one's inner state. If your shadow carries beliefs of unworthiness, fear of loss, or anger toward abundance, those hidden thoughts will repel prosperity. But when you face the shadow and bring those buried beliefs into light, you begin to shift the energy that creates your financial reality. The fear of lack becomes the foundation of gratitude. The anger at past loss becomes the wisdom to steward abundance with care. The doubt in your own worth transforms into a magnetic confidence that attracts wealth naturally. To face the shadow is to heal the inner blocks that keep wealth away, opening the door for prosperity to flow freely. Inner peace arises when the war within is finally silenced. So many live divided against themselves, one part striving to be accepted, another part hiding in shame, another pushing down what it longs to express. This division creates endless restlessness. But when the shadow is faced and embraced, the conflict ends. You no longer need to fight with yourself or silence parts of who you are. Instead, you walk in harmony, fully aligned with your true being. Peace is not found in the absence of challenge, but in the presence of unity within. And this unity is the natural result of meeting your shadow with compassion rather than fear. Success, wealth, and peace are not prizes given by the world. They are reflections of the inner union that begins when you turn toward the very parts of yourself you once tried to escape. The shadow, when faced, becomes the bridge to every fulfillment you seek. True mastery comes from reconciling both light and shadow within. To live only in the light is to live a half-life, pretending away the depth of your humanity, hiding from the very forces that shape your destiny. And to dwell only in the shadow is to remain imprisoned by fear, anger, and doubt, never stepping into the brilliance that was meant to guide your path. Mastery is not choosing one and rejecting the other. It is the sacred art of bringing them into harmony. When the light and the shadow join, the self becomes whole, and in that wholeness lies power beyond measure. The light represents clarity, purpose, vision, and the higher calling of the soul. It is the spark of divinity that whispers of greatness, the force that inspires and uplifts. But without the grounding of the shadow, light becomes fragile, disconnected, unable to stand in the storms of life. The shadow holds the raw energy, the primal instincts, the strength born from survival and the wisdom carved through pain. When ignored, it becomes destructive. When embraced, it becomes the unshakable foundation that allows the light to shine with stability and permanence. Reconciliation does not mean eliminating darkness, nor does it mean letting shadow rule. It means seeing both as sacred, necessary, and powerful in their rightful place. The shadow provides depth to the light, and the light gives direction to the shadow. Together, they create a balance that allows a person to stand unbroken in the face of any challenge. To reconcile them is to seize the inner war that consumes energy and to channel that energy instead into creation, love, and purpose. True mastery is the ability to walk the world without masks, to own both brilliance and brokenness, strength and fragility, divinity and humanity. It is the courage to face the wounds within and to transmute them into wisdom. It is the humility to accept imperfections and the strength to let those imperfections become stepping stones rather than stumbling blocks. A mastered soul is not the one who hides from darkness, but the one who stands in it with the light burning ever brighter. When you reconcile light and shadow, you become unshackable. for nothing within you is left unclaimed. You walk with the authority of wholeness, no longer bound by denial, no longer pulled apart by inner conflict. Your voice carries weight, your actions radiate power, and your presence itself becomes transformative. This is the secret of true mastery, the union of opposites, the harmony of all that you are. The fearless acceptance of both shadow and light as parts of the same divine whole.